Hello everyone, and welcome to our SASE Summit session again. My name is Ramnath, Sehnai, and I'm a Director of Products and Solutions responsible for SASE at Fortinet. My session today will focus on a key area that CISOs and security practitioners are having a big headache about. As CISOs and CIOs start onboarding or having multiple employees in the organization, one of the key factors that becomes important is how do I ensure efficient, secure connection for all employees who are leveraging their own BYOD or bring your own devices. So this could be the employee's own personal laptop, it could be the employee's own personal tablet, or it could be their own smartphone. We all agree that we have used our personal devices in order to get our official work done, right? As we go through our workday, we require the flexibility of working not just from anywhere, but also from any device. And that creates a lot of burden on the IT team to ensure secure connectivity for all the devices. Now, going back to the demo, you saw Peter, who was just onboarded on to the HR portal. Yes, he got access to it, he's onboarded, but as he goes over time and gets familiar with his company, he would want to get access to his resources through his personal devices. As you see here, I have some key stats around different aspects around BYOD. The key stat here is around 71% that I'm showing here. 71% of employees have sensitive work information on their personal devices. And that number is huge, right? So think about this. On our personal devices, we have sensitive information. So from a CISO or a security practitioner standpoint, it becomes vital that how do I ensure no data leak or no IP gets out of that device and becomes a problem for my company, right? From an attack vector perspective, about 48% of attacks or breaches out there are caused because of unmanaged or bring your own devices or personal devices. So that number is staggering, right? The other thing that we have seen constantly coming through news is the phishing attacks. And with the advent of AI, phishing has become a big problem. So as phishing becomes more and more sophisticated and becomes more and more real from the way the hackers are attacking through phishing mediums, 89% of browser-based threats are coming through phishing. So it becomes really important that CISOs and CIOs have some kind of a strategy in place to secure all employees or contractors or temporary workers when they're leveraging their own personal devices. Now, from a threat standpoint, I just wanted to call out some of the different examples that you could see that could happen if you don't have any security policy today to secure BYOD. First and foremost, internal threats. Now, this could be a disgruntled employee, it could be an employee who's about to leave the company to a competitor, or it could be an employee who doesn't know that his own device has got infected with some malicious actor coming in, right? So all of these things become really important from an internal threat perspective. The other key area that CISOs are worried about is safe Gen AI usage. As we use more and more Gen AI applications, I raise my hand, even I use ChatGPT a few times during the day. We all use many different Gen AI applications, right? So how do we ensure that we don't put any sensitive data into those Gen AI applications, especially on the BYOD devices, which companies don't have control on, right? And that's where shadow Gen AI, shadow IT becomes a big factor as BYOD becomes rampant. From an external threat perspective, I covered phishing. Malicious browser extension is one of the key factors that we have to keep in mind. Malware downloads through browser is another key factor, as well as cross-site scripting. Now, how can Fortinet help? Fortinet can help in multiple different avenues. Before I get into how we can help, let me cover what are different areas we can provide in order to secure all of your BYOD traffic. First and foremost, we have avenues and features and techniques to secure any of your users connecting from any device. So we provide that full-fledged holistic security for all the users within your organization across all the devices that they're getting access from. The other part is around data loss. How do we ensure no data exfiltration happens? We do provide full-fledged DLP controls for all kinds of devices, and I'll cover how we do that. And last but not least, you might have seen some companies only support BYOD for either accessing private applications or only accessing a set of applications. The goal should be we need to provide security for BYOD across all the application types. That's where you provide that complete protection across all applications. And that's where Fortinet can provide you with the unified SASE that we have. Let me take a step back and show you how we do it, right? I covered what we do before, like how we do it is what I'm covering here. From the leftmost side of the screen on the top left, we have something called as explicit proxy. And that's something we have been having for many years now, right? That's something we began our journey a few years prior. And then over the years, we have added new capabilities in order for you to ensure that any BYOD that connects in is connected securely. We extended further to enhance to support something called as thin edge. And this is a beautiful use case where when you have OT or IoT within your environment, and it's impractical for you to install agents on those devices, you could leverage a thin edge solution where the thin edge can front end all of your OT IoT devices, and the thin edge can be your SASE point to connect to your SASE point of presence. So thin edge can give you that extension to even OT IoT use cases which other vendors cannot. And even the management aspect of thin edge can be done through the same unified SASE console. Hopping on to RBI. Yes, RBI is something that we all know for many years now as a feature, remote browser isolation, and that's something we provide natively within our unified SASE offering. So as a customer, they don't have to purchase any add-on license. They get RBI as a feature, and that allows you to render content on our cloud and protect your devices from any malware or any cross-site scripting or anything that's happening from a JavaScript perspective. Now, the reason why I've highlighted the two at the bottom is because I want to expand further on those two features. Those two features are the ones that we have recently added to our portfolio of unified SASE features. The first one on the left is agentless ZTNA, and then we have browser security. Agentless ZTNA is more geared towards securing your private apps, either that be at a private data center or in your public cloud. Browser security extends that further, where you can have comprehensive controls, where you can say only a user with an extension can connect to a specific app, and that extends to all types of applications. So it gives you more granularity and more flexibility to control all of your users' traffic. Now going back to Peter, we saw Peter was able to connect to the HR portal, and again we saw before in the demo that there was no issue with either the network, the application, the endpoint. The issue was with the endpoint's vulnerability, and that's why the ZTNA was dropping. So now Peter here is trying to access his corporate resources. Maybe he's trying to access the HR portal through his phone. He wants to see his pay stubs, for example. So what happens here is that Peter will gain access to the HR portal. Before that, the security admin or the CISO, the security team has to do some kind of pre-provisioning where they have to create user groups, they have to create MFA, as well as they have to say that these are the applications I would allow for the BYOD users to come in. And after they do that, they'll provide that FQDN or the URL to all of the employees who they want access to from any device, as well as the contractors and temporary workers who don't really have employer devices. So as Peter connects here, you can see the Peter's connection will actually have an FQDN map to the FortiSASE portal, and the traffic will get steered to the Spark connector, which would be in front of the application itself, either that be in a private data center or in public cloud. So as the traffic goes to the Spark connector, we would control and ensure that Peter is the right Peter coming in. We would enforce multi-factor authentication. And again, you can either use our MFA or you could use a third-party MFA. We full-fledged support all kinds of third-party MFA as well. And then when Peter connects to his resources, we are able to ensure that it's the right kind of device connecting in with the right amount of controls. So all of that is available for usage for you as a security admin. So this covered the private application, and when Peter tries to access the application, he would gain access to this screen that you're seeing here on the bottom left. And as part of the demo after me, Claudio is going to cover this in more detail, and this is where you'll see this more in action. But in essence, Peter will get a view of multiple thumbnails where there would be multiple different applications that he would be allowed access to based on the security team's decision. And after that, after authenticating the first time to get here, he would have to do another level of authentication to gain access to those individual application tabs that you see here. Now you would say, hey Ramnath, what about SaaS applications? And that's where the power of browser security comes in. So we have now added browser security in form of a lightweight plugin. So the browser security with a plugin will provide additional controls, will provide means to say that, hey Peter, if only you have this browser plugin installed, then only you can gain access to our private resources as well as any of the SaaS resources. So it provides the next level of control. It provides conditional access to Peter, and it only allows Peter to connect if he has the right plugin, which is our browser plugin that we have now introduced. As I dive deeper into browser plugin, now you might say, what's the purpose of browser plugin, right? Unlike other vendors who have full-fledged enterprise browser, our goal is to provide simplicity and flexibility for the employees. We don't want employees to be bogged down to use a specific browser because employees and every one of us is very familiar with the browser that we use. So why change that? So in order for us to facilitate that productivity for everyone, all the employees, we want to ensure they use a browser of their choice. And we are able to provide security on any browser based on the plugin that we provide. So here I covered about conditional access to applications. On top of that, we can support AI-powered image and text analysis on top. So whatever communication is happening through the browser to the SaaS app or to the private application, we can go more granular and support things like anti-evasion. We can also do sandboxing. Data loss was a big factor, as I mentioned before, a big concern. So we can have multiple DLP policies right at the browser. So the control is now pushed towards the endpoint where you can say, from a user standpoint, user cannot copy paste, user cannot print. Let's say, as I mentioned, a disgruntled employee who wants to, he has access to Salesforce, for example, and he has access to all the deals. What if he tries to download that? You can have a policy saying that from a browser, you can't download from a BYOD device. What if the employee tries to take a screenshot and just send it across? In that case, we could add watermarking for any kind of pictures taken of sensitive content from any device. So think of this. If that employee still tries to take a picture and send it across or try to use it in the future, that watermark will always be there. And someone can easily trace back to that employee that the employee was the source of this particular sensitive data. So it's really a big thing because the employees will now become more careful when they're trying to leverage their browser. And that's how we are able to provide more enhanced security in form of data loss. Along with that is GenAI usage, right? I mentioned we do have full-fledged GenAI protections to avoid any kind of data leak. And then if the employee or if the contractor is trying to install any third-party extensions, we do have a way to look at multiple different extensions and provide a risk score across different extensions and disallow the employee to download a specific extension if required. So we do have that breadth of understanding of what's happening at the endpoint and gets full-fledged visibility on an application standpoint, what they're trying to install as a plugin, as well as what they're trying to access inline from the browser perspective. So comprehensive security from a browser standpoint is what you would get as you enable our browser extension, a plugin with a browser security feature with a unified SASE. Now to wrap up and sum it all together, it's all about providing that productivity, right? Increased productivity. We all love working wherever we can. As you open your phone, as you open your laptop, that's where our work is today, right? It's not bound to a location anymore. So that's why it becomes really important that we extend that usability to any kind of device, but then you open up security problems, and that's how we, from a unified SASE standpoint, are able to provide that security even for BYOD without any management burden, right? I mean, historically, you would either have to do a VPN or you would have to either support a full-fledged MDM, but you could go away from that and just go with our unified SASE solution and then go ahead and leverage that security on top. DLP I covered in detail. Again, data loss natively within the browser itself. You could pretty much protect any kind of data going out of your organization. And last but not least, how do you manage that? From a security admin standpoint, everything is managed through the same management console. So all the RBI features that I mentioned, explicit proxy, thin edge configurations, management of thin edge, even agentless ZTNA, or that be browser security. All of those controls can be configured from the same unified console. Unlike many vendors who have multiple consoles for multiple features or use cases, in our case, we have that same single unified console to manage all aspects of security, either that be for remote users on sanctioned devices or remote users or employees on unsanctioned or BYOD devices. Okay, so now that you have learned how we can secure, what are different avenues of securing BYOD, now let's look at this in action. Let me invite Claudio, Salmin, to show you a demo on securing BYOD and how browser security can enhance that security posture for all of your BYOD. Over to you, Claudio.
Hello, everyone. My name is Claudio Salmin. I'm part of the product management team looking after FortiSASE. In the previous session, Ramnath went through why it is important for organizations to secure access to their applications, private applications or SaaS applications, for agentless devices, and therefore for contractors or for employees using their own devices. In my demonstration, I want to show you how Fortinet implements the secure access to applications. And in particular, I'm going to show you the integration between two technologies, the agentless ZTNA portal and the browser security extension. And in particular, I'm going to focus on how the browser extension is a key requirement for users to be able to access applications. In my demonstration, I'm going to focus on the agentless ZTNA portal that exposes private applications to third-party contractors or to employees with their own devices. So in the demonstration, I will show you two scenarios. The first scenario, I have a contractor, a user, without this browser extension, and it will try to access the agentless ZTNA portal, which is a public available URL. And therefore, the same can be applied to a SaaS application. And because the contractor doesn't have the browser extension, it won't be allowed to connect to the agentless ZTNA portal. The second scenario, the same contractor now has the browser extension installed. And this is the key condition for the user to be able to access the agentless ZTNA portal. And I would like to highlight that in this use case, I just use a browser extension as a conditional access requirement. I don't need to have an agent deployed or a full-blown enterprise browser. Let me now dive into the demonstration. Okay, I'm now simulating the contractor. I have a Google Chrome page open in incognito mode, and therefore no browser extension is installed. Let me navigate to the agentless ZTNA portal. Let me log in as a contractor user, type in the password. And as you can see, because the browser extension is not installed and it's a key condition to be able to access the portal, I cannot access it, right? So the integration between the browser extension, FortiSASE, and the IDP blocks the user from accessing a publicly available URL. Let me now simulate the same contractor, but in this case, it's a normal page, not in incognito mode, and therefore you can see here on the top right corner that the FortiSASE browser security extension is correctly installed. The contractor is correctly onboarded on the plugin. So let me navigate to the agentless ZTNA portal, sign in as the same user, type in the password, and in this case, because the browser extension is installed on the browser, I can correctly access the portal and see all the application exposed to the contractor. Now here there are few applications. The first thing I would like to highlight is that already you can see the watermark. That this is to allow exfiltration of screenshots, exfiltration of data via screenshots. So I would like to, in this demo, I would like to focus on a couple of key functionality of the browser extension. It's not going to be a full comprehensive browser extension demo. If you want to know more about our browser extension capabilities, I advise you to reach out to our Fortinet colleagues. This is just a teaser to show key features, right? So let me navigate, for example, to my Acme portal, where there are some internal documentation, some sensitive information. Let me navigate to the product brochure. And from here, I would like to show you a couple of things. The first one is, how do we achieve confidentiality? So let's say there is a contractor that is looking at important documentation. It's in an office, and a colleague comes to his desk, so he can quickly move away the browse pointer focus from the page, and the browser extension is going to blur the page, not to allow other people to look at the content. The other thing I would like to highlight is the control on the print of the page. So with the browser extension, we can block printing of the page. So as you can see, there is an error message here that the page is intentionally blank, that the administrator doesn't allow user to print documents. The other thing is also the control of copy paste, right? You want to avoid people copy pasting from the web page to their own favorite text editor. So here, let me try to copy the content of this page and paste it in my favorite text editor. And as you can see, the browser extension kicked in and doesn't allow the copy of sensitive text, of sensitive information. Now, the last thing I would like to show you is also download of file, how browser extension can block file download. So for this example, I'm going to navigate to another application called Finance Sample Application, where I have the possibility to download a financial report. So if I click download report, the browser extension kicks in and it's going to block the download, saying that I'm not allowed to download this file. So this concludes the demonstration. Again, the objective was to show you how the browser extension is a key condition to allow agentless devices to access private or public application. In my case, I showed access to private application via the agentless ZTNA portal, but this can easily be done also to SaaS applications. With that said, I thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Claudio, for showing us a demo on securing BYOD. So now this would really give you a way to think how Fortinet Unified SASE can secure any of your devices, either that be your employer devices or your BYOD, accessing any kind of application. And conditional access was a key use case that we were focusing on. Enjoy the rest of your SASE event. Thank you so much.